So hi everyone, you're welcome back to another video tutorial. So in this video tutorial, we are going to create our hero section. So since we already have the nav bar, I'm just going to draw like a little frame. And I'm going to push this to the bottom. Now let's change this to 780 and see how it looks. 780. And then I'm just going to add like a gray fill so that I can see how it looks on our page. So I don't want to scroll too much before seeing it. I think this looks perfect, so I'm just going to remove this, so we don't need it anymore. Now that we have created our frame, we're going to name this hero section. So everything about the hero section is going to go inside of this frame. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create our text. So we have fresh groceries, comma, and then from the farm to your doorstep, full stop. And then we're going to make this our H1 bold. So this is how our H1 bold looks, and we're just going to move this, make sure that it's 120 from the left. So now that we've made it 120 from the left, we can now reduce it. So I want this to feel just like, I think 4 is okay, or let's just make it 5. I think 5 is also okay. Let's make sure that we're actually following our grid, please. All right, so now that we have this, we have our first text. And then the next thing we are going to do, we are just going to duplicate this and then add our text that is beneath. So for this text, we're going to use let's basically use the medium of the paragraph. So we are going to edit the text. So what we're going to say is get hand-picked organic groceries delivered straight to your door. So let's make sure that everything is spelled correctly. Fresh groceries from the farm to your doorstep. Get hand-picked organic groceries delivered straight to your doorstep. So that's what we want to do. And I'm going to push this downwards a bit. And let's keep this at 20. And I'm going to add like auto layout to this. So I'm going to name this header plus subtext. So now that we have this, I think this is how this looks currently. And let's make sure this is bold. Yeah, our H1 bold. So that's what we want. So the next thing that we are going to bring in is like a button. So we are going to copy this button and then come here. I like using paste, duplicate and paste to replace. So I'm just going to duplicate this and right click on this and paste to replace, because I've gone to copy that button. So I can now paste to replace. Now that we have join waitlist and we want to have another button by the side, which I'm going to select both of them, add auto layout and change the layout direction. And we are going to maintain the gap of 20. So for this, we are going to make sure that this actually follows our margin. I'm just going to select this and I'm going to move this a bit and see that this works. This is actually following our grid. So this is 183. So I'm going to make this also 183. 183. Just note, it doesn't have to necessarily follow the grid though, but for this tutorial I wanted to follow the grid. So now we can now change the type of button that we want. So we are going to change this to outlined, and we are going to change the text. So the text now is now going to be see features. So we're going to click enter. Why it's not visible is because of the white. So I'm just going to change this to our black color, change this to our white black color, and so this is it. And I'm just going to change some settings, and I think this is okay. I don't think there's any other thing we want to do. So I'm just going to select this. I think this is okay. So this will be C features, but I think I would like this to have like our red, our primary color. So I'm just going to change this to the white text to our primary color. So let me effect the change from this and change it to our primary color. I want the text to have a primary color, and let's see if that's affected here. So why it didn't affect here is because we did an override in the changes earlier on. So I'm going to change this to, so I'm just basically going to go back to this, or I'm going to just right click it and reset the component. So let's reset instance. So now that we've reset it, we can now edit it and change it to see features. So now this is how it looks, and don't forget we change this to 183. Yep, so this is what we want now. So this is how it looks, and let's go over here and see this is how it looks. So we are just going to leave this at this, and then the next thing we are going to create now is our right side panel. So altogether, this is no longer just this thing. So we are just going to change this. We're also going to add plus. Or you know what, let's not add, let's just change this to left content. And then we're going to add this to make this to add auto layout to this to basically. So we are going to change this to header plus subtext. So and this is going to be our CTA. So this is going to be our buttons. So we're going to leave this at buttons. So now that we have this, now you can see under the left content we have the header plus subtext, and down we have the button. So the last part that we're now going to create, let's quickly create it before we add it to the auto layer. So I want to create like a quick rating. So I'm just going to add this, and I'm going to leave this at 40. So I'm going to lock the aspect ratio and change this to 40, and then we're just going to change this to our gray color, and I'm going to give it like corner radius of 100. All right, so I'm just going to duplicate it by holding Alt and dragging, and I'm going to make this in 4 places. So I'm going to select all and then add auto layout to it, and the gap between them I'm just going to set it to -12. So now we're just going to add like a little stroke around it so that it can be, so we'll know what we are doing. So we're just going to change this to background color and then increase the corner radius. Let's just increase the corner radius to like 2 and see what works. Oh, we are adding it to the outer layer. Please, let's quickly edit that, and let's remove the stroke. Stroke should not be here. So now let's select this manually, in fact. So we're going to select this. We want to add these strokes around these shapes that were created. So we are just going to add the stroke. We're going to add our background color. Then we're going to change this to 2. So you see now there's, at least we can now see that they are separated. So the next thing we are going to do now is add our text. So to add our text, beside it we have 4.8 plus ratings. 4.8 ratings plus, and then we're going to bring this down and change this to trusted by 2K plus customer, trusted by 2K plus customers. And now we're going to change this to our placeholder text, which is regular. So I'm going to change it to our placeholder text, which is regular, and I'm going to change this is going to be our, let me change this to header, semi-bold of header 4. I think it's too much. Let's leave this semi-bold of body text, and this is okay as this. So I'm just going to select both of them, add auto layout to it, and then change the distance between them to like 4, and change this to ratings. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to select both of these and add auto layout to it and make this 12, and then I'm going to call this, so the entire frame, I'm going to rename the entire frame. Let me select this again. So this frame, I'm just going to call it images. So I'm just going to change this to image. Let me select this and call it images. Let me just copy and then paste and paste. So this is just like add button. This should be like an icon. Let's change this to an icon. This last one will be an icon. So now we're now going to name this social proof. So we are going to leave this at this, and now we have this. So we can now push this inside of our header and then push it downwards. Okay, I like this, but I think what I want to do now is change the gap between them. I think 20 is okay, but let's see how 20 looks. It looks too close. Except we're going to add this separately. So we are going to add this and this and add auto layout to it and give this a gap of 40. So now let's see how it looks. Gap of 40 up, quite okay. So we are just going to name this now header. So this will now be the left content, please. So what we will now have here will now be like header plus the button. So what we have here is the header plus the button, and finally in the left we now have header plus social proof. So that's how to create that. So you stack auto layout inside of auto layout. So, and make sure that everything has a fill. So we are going to change this to fill for responsiveness, and I'm going to change this, make sure that this is also a fill for responsiveness, and this is fill also. So when we try to drag this, you see it responds. So we're just going to go back. A box. So this particular place is where we are going to host our image. So let me quickly select this and make sure this is, let me make this work with our, so it's 120, and let's see. So now what we are just going to do now is to make sure that this hits the end of this particular, and make sure the distance between here, not too bad, I think it's okay. And I'll add more edits to that. Let me just change this to 590 also. So I'll push this to the bottom of our hero section and add our gray color to this. So now this is what we want. So one final thing, we're going to add like a little corner radius at the top. So let's just customize the corner radius and add like 24 at the top right and 24 at the top left. So now let's see how that looks. So this is how this looks. Well, it's coming to life step by step. So now we can now add our navbar. So let's bring in the navbar, but before we change navbar, we put image. Let's change this to image. So image, well, let's name this, let's just change this to write content, and then we can now bring in, copy our navbar. So I'll copy it and I'll then select this. I copied it with Ctrl+C, so I will now come over down here and paste this. So now that I paste this, I'll just push it to the top. So one thing to note is that the navbar is not inside of the hero section, so don't try to put it inside the hero section. The navbar is its own section, the hero section in its own section. So the hero section falls under the main, and before we have the navbar, the main area, which contains hero section and every other layout, every other section, before we now have the footer at the end. So now we are just going to select this and see, let's see the distance between this and the navbar. 110. 110 doesn't look bad though, but let's just quickly reduce this to 1. So let's change this to 588, because I don't want to have, I want it to, let me push this down. I want it to be divisible by 4 or 8. So this is nice. And now we have this. So we're going to call this our hero section. So lastly, we are just going to add some little boxes here for quick info. So now to add that, I'm just going to draw a frame. I'm just going to draw a frame inside of here, create it before I start positioning them properly. So I'm going to add this frame. I'm going to add a fill. So our white color is going to be the fill, and I'm going to add like around a corner radius around it. So the next thing is going to host an icon. I'm just going to put like a little stuff here also that will host our icon, and for this I'm just going to use our gray fill, and then I'm going to give it a corner radius of 8. All right, so I'm going to add auto layout to this, or let's not add auto layout. Let's quickly add text to this. So the text that will be here will be 100% organic, certified. So I'm just going to reduce this and make sure it goes to the next line. And for this, we're just going to change this to not placeholder. We're going to change this. Let's change it to our paragraph text too. Let's change it to semi-bold of our paragraph save. But medium, I think medium is okay. And we're just going to make this stay this way. And then I'm just going to, let me just reduce this. Oh no, let me just add auto layout to this, then auto layout will fix it by itself. So now the gap between them should be like 12, and then we have top and bottom should be 12, and the corners to be 12. This is what I want, and I'm going to reduce this and see if this reduces. So since it's not reducing, I want it to be responsive, so I'm just going to change this to fill, and then I'm just going to select this and then push this downward. So we want this, and let's see if it can contain two. Yeah, so I want it to be something like this. Now, yeah, so this is what I want. So I'm just going to make sure that distance between this and the top is like I think 160 is okay, or let's leave it at 120, and I'm going to push it outside a bit. So I'm going to add like a little stroke around it. So I'm just going to add so let's just leave it as gray corner radius. So now you notice that it's not displaying it when it goes outside. So what I'll just basically do that is just to turn off my clip content so that I can see it outside. So I'm just going to select this 40. I think 40 is okay. So the 40 is okay. So what I'm just going to do next is let me duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate it and select and make sure this is like 40 from the bottom, and then we can just leave this at 20 down here. Probably we'll edit it later, I don't know, but let's just leave it at 20. So what the text that will be here to be next day delivery in Lagos. So we don't want it ending up in 3 lines, so I'm just going to adjust this a bit, not necessarily following our layout grid. So I'm just going to make sure that this is just like 40 or something, or 20. I think 20 is okay, or let's just leave it at 40 also and make sure it's 40 down. So now that we have this, let's visualize this and see how it looks. So this is how it basically look right now, and now we are done with our hero section. So we are done with our hero section. Let's move over to the next section. So we are just going to adjust this down a bit. All right, see you in the next video.